Do it yourself works until it doesn't. And again, this is just more of general advice. Sometimes it's the case, sometimes it's not. I have to encourage you to consult with a qualified fiduciary before making a final decision. And especially if your situation is more complicated, then you probably do need an advisor. Welcome to the Millionaire Insider Podcast, formerly the Wealth Inside and Out podcast, where we help you create a confident, secure retirement and life you love. I'm Annette Ba'u, certified financial planner and founder of the Millionaire Insider. For over 36 years, I have helped pre-retirees and retirees turn their paychecks into guaranteed income, reduce unnecessary risk, protect their legacy, and design a retirement filled with purpose and freedom. Because true wealth isn't just about money, it's about confidence, clarity, and control over your future. If you have over $500,000 in investable assets, including personal investments as well as IRAs or 401ks, or are making over $200,000 in income, you can take our assessment at themillionaireinsider.com/5Q. This assessment is only 5 questions. It takes about 2 minutes, and it will really help determine if we can help you on your journey. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/5Q. If that's not you, we've created the Money, Confidence, and Clarity Masterclass. You can access it at themillionaireinsider.com/MCC. This class will help you get clarity and create confidence so you can better manage your money and achieve your financial and life goals. Again, you can access it at themillionaireinsider.com/MCC. For today's show notes, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/165. The Millionaire Insider copyrights all materials and intellectual property. This information is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to replace any advisor or specialist or to provide any investment, financial, tax, retirement planning, or healthcare advice. By accessing this content, you agree to hold the Millionaire Insider and its affiliates harmless for results achieved or not achieved. So let's dive into do it yourself or hiring a financial advisor, what you need to know. One of the most important questions many ask is, should I manage my own finances or should I work with an advisor? And today I'm going to break down when do-it-yourself works and when it doesn't, and why the transition from accumulation to retirement is where professional guidance is possibly the most important. You're going to learn why do-it-yourself can work during accumulation, but oftentimes becomes riskier as you near retirement, what a real financial plan should include, warning signs of product-based advice that often do-it-yourselfers fall into, and how to choose the right advisor for your future if you need one. And possibly most important is, should you manage your finances on your own or should you hire a financial advisor? We're going to talk about when it works, doing it yourself, when it doesn't, and why the transition is so important. In answering the question as far as if you should manage your own money or hire somebody, the answer depends. There's a point in your financial life where the decisions become much more important. And that's the point when I think it makes more sense to have an advisor. And it's oftentimes when you're approaching retirement. Do it yourself works until it doesn't. And again, this is just more of general advice. Sometimes it's the case, sometimes it's not. I have to encourage you to consult with a qualified fiduciary before making a final decision. And especially if your situation is more complicated, then you probably do need an advisor. During your working years, when your focus is on accumulation, I think it's much easier to do it yourself. You're saving, you're investing, you're growing your assets. And that is probably the ideal stage of do it yourself. If you have the time to do it and you take the time to become knowledgeable enough to do it. Mistakes that you make, especially if you're paying attention, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes can be corrected. And it's not as big of a deal. Now, as you get closer to retirement, that changes. Now, it's not just about growing your money, it's about turning it into income. What that means, if you're doing it correctly so that you minimize your taxes and you maximize your bottom line on what you have to spend, you've got to coordinate your plan with your tax planning. And that's all the different types of tax planning: tax-deferred growth, tax-free growth, taxable income, non taxable income, capital gains tax, personal tax, all of that. Withdrawals, when you're taking withdrawals from your investments as well as your retirement accounts, Social Security planning, investments, depending on where they're invested, and then your estate plan. So there's just a lot of different factors that you need to be coordinating. And there's less room for error because the cost of the mistake is much higher, meaning you end up having less money, you're paying too much in taxes. The worst case scenario is you don't have enough money to live the lifestyle you want in retirement. So let's talk about a real financial plan because a lot of times people think they have a financial plan when in reality they have pieces of a plan. A true financial plan is not an estate plan. It's not a retirement plan. It's not an investment plan. It's not a tax plan. It is a coordinated plan that is going to give you clarity around the retirement income you need, a tax strategy to minimize taxes, an investment plan that aligns with your short and long term goals, a risk assessment that helps you manage your risk and avoid potential problems in the areas of premature death or a need for long term care, and then an estate planning coordination. So there's a lot of different factors, and then other factors that may be unique to your situation. A true financial plan is going to give you clarity and it's going to create confidence. And you're no longer going to be wondering or guessing or hoping. You're going to have certainty in your plan and a knowledge that in the event something changes, because let's face it, you could have the best laid plan as situations change, you may have to adjust it. But when you have a plan and you can adjust it, it's got flexibility, it's got an ability, not just a plan A, but a plan B, more of a contingency plan, you're going to feel a lot more confident and calm and not feel like you're in a state of inertia or uncertainty or worry during the time when you should be really enjoying your life. Let's talk about some warning signs, do it yourself, and specifically product based advice, because a lot of do it yourselfers focus in more on the product. Now, I have clients like that, and I'm able to look at what they're doing and assess, are they coordinating what they're doing? And because I'm doing specific products, I know how to do the tax planning. So that's kind of covered. But one of the biggest concerns I see is when people receive advice that's just focused on products and not planning, meaning they purchase guaranteed income, but they don't have a tax strategy. So they're not placing it in the best bucket. Or the issue is more about when you hear a person just saying, what should I buy? Or when you have a conversation and the only question is, what should I buy? As compared to, first of all, making sure that whoever is selling you something is qualified, number one, that they are a fiduciary, and then that they have a clear understanding of your full picture. If they don't, it's a red flag. Now, a lot of people don't, right? And so they wouldn't, but you want to make sure that you've done the due diligence and you've asked the question to make sure that you don't fall into that category. A plan should always come first. Products should support the plan, not replace it. So let's talk about when do it yourself works and when it doesn't. So the first thing is, if your situation is really simple, yeah, you can probably do it yourself. You may enjoy managing your finances. And that's another clue that, yeah, keep doing it. And you have the knowledge and the confidence in your decisions, meaning you've taken the time, you're doing the research, you have the time to dedicate to it because it does require time. Now, if you're approaching retirement and you're asking, am I making the right decision? Or you're wondering or hoping or worrying. If you're questioning if you're paying too much in taxes, or you want to reduce your taxes, or you have an uncertainty that you're going to have enough money. You have that voice in the back of your mind saying, am I going to run out of money? That's where guidance can become priceless. So let's talk about that transition of do it yourself to choosing the right advisor. The first thing, as far as choosing the right advisor, is they are a fiduciary. And what that means is that a fiduciary is required to put you first, meaning They've got to make recommendations that are the best for you, not for themselves, not for their companies. And boy, it is crazy. The people who buy, and I'm going to give you an example. It's one of my clients' relative, and they asked me to step in to kind of look at their big picture. They bought annuities from a captive agent. They're probably getting about a third less. So let's just say for every $100 they're getting $70 because they didn't have it shopped and they didn't purchase one of the best products on the market. Now, I'm talking A rated carriers. I personally do not sell B rated carriers. This carrier has okay financials, but they're sold by a captive agency. And so what that means is that that's what they sell. And they don't go and they don't do a comparative analysis so that you have, really the best product. I always like to do a comparison. And then I like the top three companies. And then depending on the top three companies, the only time I don't use one of those is when I know that they're a nightmare to deal with. I know that on the back end, if you have any issue, you're never going to get support. Even if it means that you're going to get $100 more a month, I give the client the option, but I'm like, okay, I don't have a problem. If we use this, you get $100 more a month, but I will tell you this much, whenever there's an issue that comes up, forget it. You're going to have a problem. And time again, sometimes I have clients that still choose that. And they're like, boy, you sure were right. So you got to look at that. And you got to have somebody that doesn't have an incentive. Meaning, because most of the good carriers, it's not like there's a higher amount you can earn. Some allow you to have ongoing payment, which I like. It really just depends. But you want to make sure you have a fiduciary because they are required to act in your best interest. Somebody who's captive that doesn't have a fiduciary duty is not. So you've got to be really clear on that. The right advisor is going to focus, first of all, on your plan, not selling you something. Now, the only exception to that rule is if you have a fiduciary and a qualified planner that comes in and they see major risks, like huge risks that could be devastating, they may address those issues first and then create the financial plan. And I'll give you two examples that come to mind. One of my clients, when I looked at one of their investments, I kid you not, in a marketplace where based on the product they had, they should have been earning 10 to 12% a year, had earned like 0.003%. It was unbelievable. And they just weren't paying attention. So we dealt with that, first of all. And then there was another situation where the insurances were just completely messed up, meaning they were paying way too much for an insurance product and they didn't have enough coverage. And it was a super expensive product. And they just weren't in a financial position to be able to warrant that. And they just didn't know. So in that situation, we dealt with those issues first, and then we focused in on the financial plan. Another situation, the people did not have their estate plan done. And so we got that done. We got their trust set up, we got it funded, and then we dealt with the financial plan. So those are examples of where you might do certain elements of the financial plan before you actually complete the financial plan. The other issue in really finding the right advisor is that they're going to help you coordinate your bigger picture life. The other factor to watch for when hiring an advisor to make sure you have the right one is their focus on helping you coordinate all the different aspects of your financial life, not just one or two or three. They take the time to really understand your goals, as well as really your personality, how you make decisions. If one of the parties is more of a spendthrift, a lot of times you have partners that are very different from their risk tolerance. All of those things are critical. Probably, there's a lot of different factors, but one of the other key ones is that they help you make informed, confident decisions based on what you want to accomplish, and that you really feel supported in the different levels. And you don't feel like there's an agenda where they're trying to get you to do something because it's in their best interest as compared to yours. So let's recap. Probably the first one is understanding that if you are going to do it yourself, I think the best time can be, if you're qualified, during the accumulation phase. But once you get closer to retirement, probably within 10 to 15 years of retirement, that's when it becomes riskier. You want to make sure that you really truly have a financial plan that's coordinated and working together versus different pieces of the puzzle. You want to really stay clear of just product based advice. Or if you're getting product based advice, as I share, I have clients, that's what I do for them is I just do specific products. The only difference is, and I think the reason I do have a lot of that business is because I can at least look at their big picture and say, yeah, I agree with this. What about that? We can do better here as far as tax planning and making sure that wherever they are creating that guaranteed lifetime income makes sense from a tax perspective. So important. And then you want to just make sure that you are choosing the right advisor based on the fact that they're really focused on planning, not selling, that they really are helping you coordinate your plan, that they are taking the time to really understand what your goals and objectives are, and they're helping you. They're like your guide to making informed, confident decisions. I just want to leave you with the fact that you don't have to do this alone. And oftentimes, a second opinion is the best option. Even if you're going to still do it yourself, having a third party come in and look at your situation and look at what you're doing, look at what your plan is, and giving you advice, I think is priceless. With the right guidance and plan, you can move into retirement feeling confident and secure and in control of your future. And that, my friend, is the goal. When you can be in retirement, and as I've shared with you, my happiest clients, my most peaceful clients, the clients that just kind of enjoyed everything were ones that weren't worried about money. And that, my friend, is priceless. So if you're at a crossroads, meaning you either are doing it yourself or maybe you have an advisor that you do not think is a fiduciary or really focused on your goals as much as you would like, I encourage you to go to themillionaireinsider.com/support. You can answer a few questions and that will help us determine how we can best support you. So again, themillionaireinsider.com/support. There's no obligation. It's just a matter of looking at where you are and determining what your next best step is. And for some of you, it really is just a couple tweaks and for you to continue doing it yourself. And for some of you, you may need additional support. Some of you may need complete support. The great thing about a good advisor is that they can look at your situation and they can help assess where you are and more importantly, what you need to do to ensure you're going to meet your goals. And that, my friend, is the goal. So again, themillionaireinsider.com/support. I want to thank you so much for joining me. I'm Annette Ba'u. All international copyrights are reserved. Bye for now.